What you're looking at here is young Baba Lon's first grimoire. Okay, now everybody's got a version of this nowadays. Every good magician's library has at least one or two versions of this. But in 1976, it was not such a common thing. This particular edition was a gift, and I'll tell you about it in just a second. I have to be very careful because the book is over 50 years old, and what's really valuable about old books is if they have the dust jacket. And this does have the dust jacket. And the dust jacket is not, it's falling apart, sort of. Okay, it's beginning to. So I have to be very careful with it but there was a time when I used this a great deal. As you can see, I put my stamp in it. That's my O.T.O Sat Bene stamp, my motto for many years. Latin for so far so good. And the reason I've got this out and the reason I've been thinking about it is that I'm writing an introduction to a friend's book about grimoires. Okay. And what they are, what they aren't, what the classic ones are. It'll be a good book. I'll tell you more about it when it's proper to do that. But it's been taking at my consciousness for the last few weeks. And there's a story that goes with this book, and it, in a sense, is the source of my. I don't want to call it a belief, but in my statement, when I say it's all in your head, you just have no idea how big your head is. That seed was planted to that concept when I was a very, very young Baba Lon. Okay, in 1975, in November of 75, I took my Minerval initiation in O.T.O initiation. Now, there wasn't really an O.T.O big organization with governing bodies and committees, and there was more or less 3 or 4 old O.T.O members from Crowley's day in the United States that were beginning to kind of resurrect the O.T.O, and they were ninth degree members of the degree that they could do that, and one of them, Grady McMurtry, had paperwork that could be construed to give him the authority to do that, and that was pretty good paperwork, actually. But anyway, in 1975, when I joined, the O.T.O the O.T.O initiations were offered in the garage or the backyard of, at the time, a married couple, Grady McMurtry and Phyllis Seckler Wade McMurtry. Okay, I don't know how many hyphens there were, but they were married and living in Dublin, California, which is about an hour from where we're living right now. And the initiation took place, and my Minerval, which is 0 degree, uh, was officiated just by the two of them. Uh, Phyllis had intended to do it in the backyard, which would be absolutely appropriate and beautiful, and she had a beautiful backyard, a lot with privacy and everything, but it rained. So she had to quickly shift gears and set up the temple arrangement in their garage. And you couldn't tell it was a garage when you went in, because it was completely surrounded by beautiful black fabric, and it was another dimension. It was wonderful. Uh, but a few months later, uh, they scheduled my first degree initiation. It was in June of 1976 by then. And the first degree initiation is uh, uh, a more heroic setup. Okay. And at that my first degree initiation, it was still up in Dublin, and it was still in that same uh, garage, but it was Phyllis and Grady, and it was a third person that I met that night, and that was Helen Parsons Smith. And she was an officer, a third officer at my first degree initiation, and got a chance to meet and chat with her at at dinner afterwards, and we got to know each other. And Helen was her magical name was Soror Grimaud. Okay. Uh, but I call people by their names. I'm sorry. If you want me to call you by your magical name, uh, I have to really think about it and go out of my way to not call you Ralph or whatever your name is. But anyway, uh, Helen was the widow of two very notable luminaries, especially in American thelemic uh, orders, in the O.T.O in particular. Uh, she was the wife of Jack Parsons. Uh, and Jack Parsons, of course, is now a character in Strange Angel. He's got a series, a fictionalized series about him. Uh, but he's a rocket scientist, very colorful, dashing, handsome, handsome character. Invented jet-powered takeoff. He was one of the founders of JPL and Rocketdyne, and uh, uh, just very, very colorful. Literally a rocket scientist. There's a crater on the moon named after him on the dark side. Uh, but anyway, she was married to him for I think around 10 years. And oh, it's a soap opera, a magical soap opera par excellence. And I'm not going to go into that because I'm not the biggest expert on that either. Of that, but Jack's affections were transferred to Helen's sister, and Helen's affections were transferred to her second husband, Wilfred T. Smith, who was the North American head of the O.T.O. and also the lodge master of Agape Lodge, the only truly functioning O.T.O. lodge in the world for many years, right up till Crowley's death. So she was, so that's why she's Helen Parsons Smith. And as a young magician in 1976, I knew very, very, very little about any of this history or intrigue. These were just colorful old folks that I would think, how I thought at the time, you know, if I was kind of as cool as these folks when I got old, that'd be cool. So I admired them, and Helen was sort of mysterious, and she wasn't all that comfortable with Phyllis and Grady, and I sensed that she was a little something special. But they were all old ninth degree members of the O.T.O. So nobody but ninth degrees were were initiating me at the time, and Constance too. Now that I think of it, and Constance was about 6 months behind me in the getting her degrees, right up until fifth, when we took our fifths together. But I digress. Helen was a publisher, and she did sort of rare Crowley editions, beautiful small editions on handmade paper. Some of them just printed on one side because the paper was so cool, you know. And that was, I believe she called it Thelema Publishing at the time. And so that was kind of interesting. And at the feast following my first degree initiation, Helen asked me about you know, what books I had, and I had precious few. I tell you, at the time, I had you know, Magic and Theory and Practice, and a little what they called and a book 4, which was just what is now book 4 is just book 4 part 1 and 2, and I had Theory and Practice, which is a good foundation, and a few other things. Eventually, I got Gems from the Equinox, and she said, "I'll send you some books." And like always, I was broke all the time. Okay, I had to sell stuff even to get a bus to go up to Dublin. So I've always been pretty much broke. And I said, "Don't say I can't afford books." And she says, "Oh well, you know, I'll invoice you and you can pay me later." And then she said, "No, just I'll send you some books." So we were living in Costa Mesa in a little tiny apartment. Our son had just he was like 3 years old, or no, he's even younger than that at the time. Anyway, now I'm computing how old he was. He's a little older than that. One day we went to the door, and an angel in a pith helmet and a postal worker's uniform had left this box of books on the porch, and so I opened it up, and there was a few very, very kind of rare books, the magic and philosophical commentaries, and they were all good books, and hardbound editions of The Soul of the Desert and the King Cow King that she had printed herself, and two beautiful books of the law bound in red Moroccan leather, very, very thick, limited editions to 93 numbers and things. It was a treasure. But one of the treasures was this. Okay, it's a hardbound edition. And it had just been printed, published by the Equinox Booksellers and Publications Limited in London. And they called it the first facsimile edition, February 1976. And she sent it to me in June of 1976. So you could smell the salt water still on it, okay, as they used to say. Oh, by the way, here's Helen. And right up until almost the time she died, she visited us quite regularly. She was a dear friend. Boy, we enjoyed drinking champagne with. She always brought her own, which is kind of funny because there's Bacchus in the background squeezing grapes. This afternoon we took her to the Huntington Gardens in San Marino. But that's Helen. We've got other pictures of her. I don't think I can find them right offhand. But anyway, this is my first grimoire. And I got it down to get the publishing information and stuff out of it for the footnote to this thing that I'm writing. But this is where maybe I can actually read the thing to you. In My Life with the Spirits, I sort of share what I did with this. I even have a drawing. Okay, this is from my diary. There's my sketch of Ouroboros there, the 55th spirit of the Goetia. There's a self-portrait of me, magician Lon and stuff. But where I wanted to start to read, let's see. Among the texts recommended for my study was the first book, the Megaton, the Lesser Key of Solomon, commonly called Goetia, or Goetia, translated in 1888 by S.L. The bulk of the text is a description of 72, quote, fallen angels who had been tossed out of heaven for being insubordinate and are supposedly cooling their heels in hell. The basic premise of Goetic evocation is this: a skillful magician using his or her God-given authority as a human being can summon any spirit he or she wishes to compel it to obey any command within its ability to perform. Some spirits are handy for destroying your enemies. Others can get you a girlfriend or discover treasure or teach you medicine or astronomy or mathematics. Okay. Although Goetia is recommended reading for beginning students, Goetic evocation is usually reserved for more adept and experienced magicians. Predictably, the thought of conjuring up a demon to help me with my material life, yeah, I tell you, it was grim. Constance was cutting apples in two, saying, Jean-Paul can eat this half of the apple tomorrow and the next. Yeah, it was like that. I wrote Phyllis and told her how absolutely awful my material affairs were, and that I was thinking seriously about evoking a Goetic spirit. After all, Helen sent me the book. Phyllis wrote back and lectured me in no uncertain terms that Goetic evocation was low magic, and that I was not ready for such an operation, that it was dangerous and reckless, and if I needed a job, why didn't I just go out and get a job? She counseled me to continue with my yoga and preliminary magical practices and forget about evocation until I achieved knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. I knew she was right, and I certainly respected her advice. Still, it was obvious she did not realize how desperate I really was. How could I stay focused on my spiritual practices when the future of my little family was at stake? I wrote her again and simply asked, have you ever performed a Goetic evocation? Now, when I say write, I mean paper, okay, back and forth, weeks between conversation. Certainly not, was her answer. It's low magic. Okay, now I totally respected that, but just in case, I did the preparatory work and gathered the materials, just in case that I decided to do it, I'd have it all ready. Well, obviously that occurred. And I'm reading from My Life with the Spirits. If you want to know about the industrial accident and the comedy of errors, that was my first evocation. You can read about it in My Life with the Spirits. And I'm not gonna, and I've done it for you 1,000 times. But what I wanted to share briefly, and I know I've gone over here, is what Crowley said, and it was the first thing that I read. And as I was reading it over just now, I was thinking, oh, this is where Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford first heard about this. The initiated interpretation of magic. Now remember, Crowley wrote this really early in his career, and things he says here, he amended the amendments and things years later as far as his field theory for things go. But still, this part would still hold water no matter what his amendments later in life might be. It's loftily amusing to the student of magical literature who's not quite a fool, and rare is such a combination, to note the criticism directed by the Philistine against the citadel of his science. Truly, since our childhood has ingrained us not only literal belief in the Bible, but also a substantial belief in Alf Layla wa Layla, or 1001 Arabian Nights. Okay, the Bible and the fairy tale. And only adolescence can cure us. We're only too liable, in the rush and energy of dawning manhood, to overturn roughly and rashly both these classics, to regard them both on the same level as interesting documents from the standpoint of folklore and anthropology, and as nothing more. Even when we learn that the Bible, by a profound and minute study of the text, may be forced to yield up Kabbalistic arcana of cosmic scope and importance, we're often too slow to apply a similar restorative to the companion volume, or to 1001 Arabian Nights. Even if we're lucky beholders of Burton's uh, veritable edition. To me, then, it remains to raise Alf Layla wa Layla unto its proper place once more. I'm not concerned to deny the objective reality of all, quote, magical phenomena. If they are illusions, they are at least as real as many unquestioned facts of daily life. And if we follow Herbert Spencer, they are at least evidence of some cause. Now, this fact is our base. What is the cause of my illusion seeing a spirit in the triangle of art? Every smatterer, every expert in psychology will answer, that lies in your brain. English children are taught that the universe lies in infinite space. Hindu children in the Akasa, which is the same thing. Those Europeans who go a little deeper learn that from Fitch, that the phenomenal universe is the creation of the ego. Hindus or Europeans study under Hindu gurus are told that by Akasha, or Akasha, I guess, is meant the Chikakasa. The Chikakasa is situated in the third eye, in other words, in the brain. By assuming higher dimensions of space, we can assimilate this fact to realism, but we have no need to take such trouble. This being true, for the ordinary universe, that all sense impressions are dependent upon changes in the brain. We must include illusions, which are, after all, sense impressions, much as realities are, in the class of phenomena dependent on brain changes. Magical phenomena, however, come under a special subclass, since they are willed and their cause is a series of real phenomena called operations of ceremonial magic. And then he goes on to kind of to itemize those. Let's see. But any of the effects described in our book of Goetia be obtained, and if so, you can give a rational explanation of the circumstances, he asks. Say you so? I can and I will. The spirits of the Goetia are portions of the human brain. Their seals, therefore, represent methods of stimulating or regulating those particular spots through the eye. The names of gods or vibration that you use in the evocations are calculated to establish a general control of the brain, establishment of functions relative to the subtle world. Control of the brain in detail, that's the rank or spirit. Rank or type of spirit. Control of one special portion, that's the name of the spirit itself. Perfumes aid this through smell, and he talks about perfumes. I need not enter into particular discussion of these points. The intelligent reader can easily fill in what is lacking. If, when I say with Solomon, the spirit Chimerius teaches logic, what I mean is, those portions of my brain which subserve the logical faculty may be stimulated and developed by following out the process called the invocation of Chimerius. and this purely materialist, rational statement, it is independent of any objective hierarchy at all. Philosophy has nothing to say, and science can only suspend judgment pending a proper and methodical investigation of the facts alleged. In other words, let's see if I can find his bottom line. Whatever it is, even if it's dramatic magical phenomena, is still processed and interpreted in your brain. So it is outside of you, but the outside of you is ultimately inside of you. And ultimately, there is no outside of you. But anyway, I've taken up too much of your time this morning. I just wanted to take a little visit into my my past and Baba Lon's first grimoire. And if you want to know more about that evocation, please get My Life with the Spirits. Until tomorrow, for Saturday morning cartoons, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.